My name is Teresa V. Braunstein, 35 years old. Ethan said it like a rule, not a request. I don't want drama. Standing in our kitchen with his arms crossed and his body already angled away from me, like the conversation was something he'd agreed to tolerate, not participate in. I had just told him about the Dallas offer, a real step up, real responsibility, more money, the kind of move people claim they support until it interferes with their plans. Ethan didn't ask about the salary, the start date, the relocation package, none of it. He sighed, gave me a tight smile, and repeated the line like I'd threatened to flip a table instead of calmly sharing an opportunity. His graduation ceremony was in 3 months, master's degree. He'd been calling it his moment for over a year, like the calendar belonged to him. He had color-coded plans for photos, party, speeches, and social posts. I was supposed to be there smiling in the background, clapping on cue, holding his jacket while he collected validation. Dallas didn't fit the script, so he framed it as me being chaotic. "So what?" he said, rolling his eyes. "You're just going to create problems now. Can this not wait until after I graduate?" That was the moment something in me didn't snap. It settled, calmly, like a glass of water finally going still after being shaken for too long. I nodded once, neutral. "Understood," I said. He blinked because he expected pushback, negotiation, me trying to make it palatable the way I always did. Instead, I walked past him into the bedroom and pulled a duffel bag from the closet. I packed light clothes, laptop, chargers, documents I knew I'd regret leaving behind if I didn't take them now. Ethan followed me, voice rising as he realized I wasn't performing the usual routine. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Are you serious right now?" I didn't answer. Not because I couldn't, but because I finally understood that explanations were just another form of labor I was expected to provide, so he could keep his mood clean. He laughed when he saw I was actually packing, dismissive laughter, the kind he usually saved for waiters he thought were incompetent. "Wow," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "So this is your move, storming off because you didn't get your way." I kept folding shirts slowly, deliberately. "I didn't storm," I said. "You said you don't want drama. I'm removing myself from it." That wiped the smirk off his face. "That's not what I meant, and you know it," he snapped. And there it was, the translation. He didn't mean no drama. He meant no disruption, no challenge, no consequence. He followed me into the living room, arms moving now, frustration spilling out. "You're really going to abandon me right before my graduation. Do you have any idea how that makes me look?" I stopped and really looked at him, and it hit me like a clean cut. He still hadn't said a single thing about us. Not about what the move could mean for our future. Not about how we'd handle it together. Just optics, timing, his moment. "I was proud of you," I said calmly, "but I'm not a prop." His jaw tightened. "So you're choosing a job over your husband?" "No," I said. "I'm choosing myself over being minimized." He scoffed and called me dramatic, and the irony almost made me smile. I carried the duffel back to the kitchen and placed my key on the counter. The sound of metal against granite felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. I opened my phone and accepted the Dallas offer while he stood behind me, stunned, like he couldn't understand how quickly his script had broken. "You're making a huge mistake," he said, voice sharp. "You think Dallas is going to fix whatever's wrong with you?" I paused at the door and said, "I don't think anything's wrong with me. That's the difference." Then I walked out without raising my voice once, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I felt late, like I'd stayed too long, and I finally had somewhere to go that didn't require me to shrink. Dallas didn't feel heroic when I landed. It felt quiet, almost anticlimactic. No dramatic music, no triumphant speech. Just a new apartment with unopened boxes and HR emails titled "Welcome to the Team." The adrenaline from leaving had faded, and what remained was something steadier. Relief. Ethan, on the other hand, moved fast. By the time my second day in Dallas ended, my phone had already lit up with forwarded screenshots. My sister called first. "Teresa, he's telling people you had some kind of breakdown, that you just ran." I leaned back against my kitchen counter and closed my eyes. Of course he was. He wasn't angry that I left. He was angry that I left calmly, that I didn't beg, that I didn't fight loud enough to give him a villain arc. Ethan's social media turned grayscale within 48 hours. Vague quotes about outgrowing people who can't handle your success. Black and white selfies with captions about resilience. He never mentioned me directly, but he didn't need to. Our mutual friends filled in the blanks. Messages started coming in. Hey, heard things got intense. Is everything okay? He seemed pretty hurt. Hurt. Interesting word choice for someone who dismissed my opportunity like it was a scheduling inconvenience. He texted me long paragraphs alternating between sarcasm and wounded disbelief. I can't believe you did this to me. Do you realize how humiliating this is? Every message circled the same center, his image. Not once did he ask if I was okay in a new city. Not once did he say he was sorry for minimizing my career. It was always about how it looked, how it reflected, how it embarrassed him. I responded once, I didn't do anything to you. I chose something for myself. That sentence infuriated him. He accused me of jealousy, said I timed my move to sabotage his graduation, claimed I couldn't stand not being the center of attention. I read the messages without reacting, and that was new. The old me would have scrambled to clarify, to prove I wasn't competing, to explain that his degree mattered to me. But here's the truth I'd finally accepted. I had already been competing. I just hadn't realized the contest existed. He emailed about seating arrangements, about whether I would look strange not attending the ceremony. That phrasing did more damage than any insult. Look strange. Like I was a missing accessory in his curated moment. I replied, I won't be attending. He responded within minutes. Unbelievable. You're doing this on purpose. No, I was finally not doing something on purpose. I was just not participating. That's when I understood something clearly. Ethan didn't want reconciliation. He wanted restoration. He wanted the image reset, the supportive wife beside him, the applause intact. My absence wasn't a heartbreak to him. It was a disruption. And the more I stayed gone, the harder it became for him to pretend nothing had cracked. The week before graduation, his tone changed. Less accusation, more persuasion. Maybe we just needed space, he wrote. Long distance could work. It sounded reasonable on the surface, but underneath it was still the same pattern. Not what went wrong between us, just how to maintain the visual. Then the real question came. Are you coming back for the ceremony or not? I need to finalize the program. Not, I miss you. Not, can we talk? Just logistics. I stared at the message on my Dallas balcony, the skyline steady and indifferent in the background. I thought about every late night I'd stayed up editing his thesis drafts. Every weekend, I rearranged work travel to attend networking dinners that were really about his image. I thought about how easily he'd reduced my career opportunity to drama. I won't be there, I replied. The response came fast and sharp. So you're really doing this right before the biggest moment of my life? There it was again. Not our marriage, not our partnership. His moment, his optics, his audience. Graduation day arrived and I didn't watch the live stream. I went to work, had lunch with my new team, signed off on a project proposal that carried my name on it. Around mid-afternoon, my sister called. He looked off, she said carefully. He kept thanking people for supporting him through a difficult season. I could picture it, the subtle framing, the martyr undertone, the carefully constructed story about resilience. But something had shifted. People were asking quiet questions. Why wasn't his wife there? Was everything okay? Ethan wasn't used to unanswered optics. Without me standing beside him, smiling and clapping, the fairy tale looked thinner. 2 days later, he called. Not angry this time, controlled. You're acting like I never mattered, he said. I leaned back on my couch and let the silence sit for a second. You mattered, I replied. You just didn't respect me. He tried a new tactic. After everything I did for you. That line might have broken me years ago. Now it just sounded transactional. Support isn't something you keep score on, I said evenly. He went quiet, then sharper. You couldn't handle not being the center of my life. That was the moment I saw it fully. He truly believed love meant orbit. That partnership meant hierarchy. That my stepping away was rebellion, not boundary. I wasn't trying to be the center, I said. I just refused to be background. He hung up without another word. And for the first time since I left that kitchen, I didn't feel tension afterward. I felt finality. The divorce paperwork moved faster than either of us expected. No dramatic courtroom showdown, no screaming matches over furniture or finances, just signatures, timestamps, and the quiet efficiency of something that had already emotionally ended long before it became legal. Ethan signed without hesitation. I think part of him understood that dragging it out would only invite questions he couldn't script. His posts didn't stop. If anything, they intensified at first. Captions about evolving beyond what limits you, about choosing growth even when others can't keep up. The applause emojis kept coming, but something had shifted. The comments were shorter, less passionate, fewer people rushing to validate him. You can only play the misunderstood hero for so long before people start noticing the pattern. I heard through a mutual friend that his advisor had distanced herself, that a job opportunity he'd been sure of suddenly required more collaborative references. That phrase stuck with me. Collaborative, not competitive, not curated. Collaborative. 8 months passed. Dallas stopped feeling like a temporary escape and started feeling like home. Not because it was glamorous, but because it was calm. I didn't rehearse conversations anymore. I didn't monitor tone shifts. I didn't brace for subtle comparisons or disguised jokes. My life felt steady in a way it hadn't in years. One evening, sitting on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker on, I realized something simple and profound. I hadn't thought about Ethan all day. Not once, not in anger, not in sadness, not even in curiosity. That absence of mental noise was the real win. He tried one last time, a short message from a new number. "You really think you're better off?" I didn't respond, not because I wanted to punish him, but because the question no longer required an answer. I wasn't better off because of Dallas. I was better off because I stopped negotiating for respect. Here's what I've learned. Leaving isn't loud, it's not cinematic, it doesn't always come with shouting or broken dishes. Sometimes it's just a quiet realization that peace feels different than performance. He said he didn't want drama, so I removed myself from the script entirely. He wanted applause, I wanted respect. And in the end, the only thing that collapsed wasn't a graduation ceremony. It was the illusion that I would always stay small to keep someone else comfortable. Walking away wasn't chaos. It was clarity. There's a strange silence that comes after a long war ends. Not the dramatic kind. Not the kind where violins swell and everyone suddenly understands the lesson. The real kind. The quiet where you wake up and realize your nervous system isn't bracing for impact anymore. That's what came next. Not revenge. Not regret. Just quiet. About 2 months after the divorce finalized, I ran into one of Ethan's old friends at a networking event in Dallas. He hesitated when he saw me, like he wasn't sure whether I'd be bitter or fragile. "Hey, Teresa," he said carefully. "He's still talking about it." I smiled politely. I figured. The friend shifted uncomfortably. "He keeps saying you couldn't handle his ambition." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. It had always been easier for Ethan to believe I was threatened than to accept I was tired of being diminished. I didn't defend myself. I didn't correct the story. I just said, "I hope he finds what he's looking for." That was the truth. Whatever he was chasing, it wasn't me. Dallas continued unfolding in ways that felt earned instead of curated. I led my first major project 3 months in. I walked into that boardroom not as someone's wife, not as a +1, not as a supporting character, but as the person in charge. No one asked where my husband was. No one expected me to shrink. They asked for my opinion and waited for it. That still surprises me sometimes, how radical it feels to be listened to without qualification. There were moments of loneliness, of course. I won't pretend I floated through it untouched. Some nights I'd sit on my couch and wonder if I'd overcorrected, if maybe I should have fought harder. But then I would replay that rooftop night in my mind, the casual dismissal, the ranking. The way he said he had options, and I'd remember something important. Love doesn't require auditions. Respect doesn't require proof of worth. If you have to keep earning your place, you were never really placed there to begin with. About 6 months in, I started seeing someone. His name is Daniel. I'm mentioning him not because this story needs a romantic reward, but because he represents something I didn't realize I deserved. We met at a professional conference. No dramatic sparks, no cinematic slow-motion moment. Just a conversation that didn't feel like performance. He never compared me to anyone. He never hinted at what he could have had. When I told him about Dallas, about the job offer and the kitchen and the key on the counter, he didn't say I was brave. He didn't say Ethan was terrible. He just said, "That must have taken a lot of clarity." That word again, clarity. Not drama, not rebellion, clarity. One evening, Daniel and I were walking along the Trinity River, city lights reflecting off the water, and he asked gently, "Do you ever regret it?" I thought about it honestly, not defensively, not performatively. "No," I said. "I regret staying as long as I did." He squeezed my hand once. No commentary, no insecurity, just acknowledgement. Meanwhile, Ethan's narrative kept shifting. First I was unstable, then I was jealous, then I was cold. The story evolved depending on the audience. But here's what happens when you stop participating in someone else's version of you. It eventually collapses under its own inconsistency. People notice patterns. They notice when someone always positions themselves as the victim in every chapter. They notice when the partner who couldn't handle ambition is thriving professionally and personally without chaos trailing behind her. A mutual acquaintance told me recently that Ethan mentioned me less now, that my name had stopped appearing in his stories. That silence felt like a final confirmation. Not because I wanted to be forgotten, but because I no longer needed to be defended. The absence of conflict became proof of growth. The real shift happened internally, though. One morning I caught myself laughing alone in my kitchen while making coffee. Not at anything in particular, just laughing. It startled me because it was light. It wasn't edged with tension. It wasn't followed by a thought about how someone might interpret it. It was just mine. Walking away didn't make me heroic. It made me honest. It didn't punish him. It freed me. I stopped negotiating for basic decency. I stopped explaining why I deserved to be treated as an equal. And once you taste that kind of peace, you can't unknow it. If there's one thing I understand now, it's this. People don't leave because they crave chaos. They leave because they finally recognize a pattern they refuse to live inside anymore. Ethan said he didn't want drama. I gave him exactly what he asked for. I removed myself from the equation. What collapsed wasn't a marriage built on equality. It was a performance built on assumption. I don't know how Ethan tells the story now. Maybe I'm still the villain in his version. Maybe I'm the one who could have done better. That's fine, because I did. Not in the way he meant. Not in comparison to him. I did better by myself. And that quiet, steady life I built in Dallas, it isn't dramatic. It isn't flashy. It doesn't need an audience. It just fits. And for the first time in a very long time, I don't feel like I'm standing in anyone's shadow.